Lots to talk about with the Oilers being swept in the third round. You know what I want to start with? Man, that was exciting. That was a lot of fun to watch this year. And we can't be too disappointed about a team that did not expect, a lot of people, a lot of the sports donkeys didn't expect them to get past the first or second round. For them to take a run at it this year was nice, was fun to watch.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I look at it, too. I think back to when we were doing segments in December, January, where the Oilers were 2-13, and we were wondering if they would even make the playoffs because it didn't look good. And then Woodcroft came in and brought the power stance and put them into the playoffs. And round by round, they just seemed to get doubted by not against LA, but nobody picked them to beat Calgary. They beat Calgary, and then they went on to the Western Conference Finals. Man, it was a lot of fun, and even just participating in the playoffs for the last 6 weeks or whatever it was a great time. City should be proud. Boys should be proud. That was a hell of a season.
Yeah, the team was obviously beat up, losing guys, Nurse and Darnell, and Draisaitl both playing pretty badly injured. Like, they toughed it out.
Any other injuries pop up that we
probably? I mean, they haven't announced anything yet. I was watching the player availabilities yesterday, expecting more to come out. But even just a guy like Darnell Nurse, he reveals he had a torn hip flexor.
Yeah,
I have a buddy that's got that
playoffs.
I've got a buddy that's got the exact same thing going on right now, and he had to be carted around in a wheelchair for a day. Like, so how is this guy playing in the NHL playoffs? I have no idea.
Yeah,
Leon Draisaitl wouldn't even admit that he was injured when he was asked about it. So they weren't making any excuses for what happened. There's clear a lot of guys are beat up, but again, they should be very proud about what they did. Getting swept obviously sucks, but the Colorado Avalanche have only lost 2 games in this entire playoff so far, so they're a very good hockey team.
Look at the Avalanche's last few years, too.
Yeah.
Like, over the past 5 years, I think I read on Oilers Nation, they've won more regular season games than any other team, and they just couldn't get it done in the playoffs, so it was their time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, sometimes you gotta take a hard lesson, and I imagine a player like Connor and Leon will take those. Maybe take 6 minutes off before they get back to work, but
yeah,
it was a great season. It was there were some games in there that could have been had in the Western Conference Finals. I think a game 1, now in hindsight, that offside call proves to be more costly.
Yeah,
I thought they could have had it in game 3. They had a tie game in the third period. They had 2 separate 2-goal leads in the third period of game 4. So there were some winnable games here for the Oilers, and they just couldn't close it out. So lessons to be learned here on what it means to cash it in the Western Conference Finals, but unfortunately they were on the wrong side of it.
I think the sniff that they got at it too is going to be motivation for the next year, right? Like Grant just brought up the Draisaitl, right? That, I mean, anytime he is spoken, you can just see there's just a change in how they're approaching these press conferences afterwards and how they approach these games as well. And the nucleus is intact. I mean, for the most part, going into this next year, this is going to be a dangerous team.
Yeah, I mean, most of the roster, obviously, there's big questions around what happens to Evander Kane. There's rumors about Jesse Puljujärvi potentially being moved, which I don't agree with, by the way. But for the most part, the same team is coming back outside of the goaltending. Yesterday, there's rumblings kind of coming out. Mike Smith may end up retiring. Mikko Koskinen's already signed over in Europe for next year. So,
did he?
Yeah, there could be a different look in net for the Oilers next year, but for the most part, the forwards and the defense are coming back, and we'll see what happens because, like you said, Locke, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from this team this year.
Yeah, and you know what? For me, too, just as a fan, I think I learned a lot of lessons about my ability to keep up with the weekday drinking as well. And, right, like I'm going to do a little bit more prep in the off season. I'm going to work on my drinking as well, so that if we go on a deeper run next, because this was tough. I was actually a bit relieved that we had an early exit, because another round, I don't know if I would have been able to make it, to be honest with you.
It was rough. It was rough on the bank account. It was rough on the liver. I don't know if I've eaten a vegetable in the last 6 weeks. Like, it was just, there was a lot of partying. I was not ready for it. There was some very late nights and early mornings. So yeah, I think we all need to do a little bit better on our off-season training to make sure we're prepped for next spring.
We'll get there. We'll get there with this team.
Determination.
Yes. we should talk about Kane. I know you touched on it quickly. I mean, he's an unrestricted free agent. That was a rental player. I mean, everybody knew that. Is he in an Oilers jersey next year, or I
think he takes wherever he gets the most money.
I think that obviously he came in January. He did everything the Oilers could have hoped he would. He's at the moment right now, he's currently leading the playoffs in goals. He scored a bunch. He was on a 40-goal pace. I don't know what the Oilers would have to move out to be able to afford to keep him.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they'd be willing to do it. I would 100% imagine that Ken Holland will be like, hey, what's it going to take to keep you here? But like Grant said, when you put up a season like that, you're going to have a bunch of options.
Cash in on it.
You got to cash in on it. So if I was to bet on it, I would probably bet on Kane playing his last game as an Oiler, the one before he was suspended.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And is there any rumors about what they'll do in net? If we've lost both our goalies.
Stuart Skinner. Right?
Skinner?
Stuart Skinner will definitely be around next year because otherwise he has to go on waivers, and they're not going to lose Stuart Skinner on waivers. So he'll be one of them. Who's the other one? We don't know. I mean, it very well could be Mike Smith. Maybe he could just been talking like, end of season disappointment. They just lost the night before. But at the same point, he's a 40-year-old man now. And
I don't know if my heart can do another year of Mike Smith in net.
He's hard to watch.
He's such a roller coaster to watch.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's Mike Smith giveth, Mike Smith taketh away.
Yeah.
But, you live by the sword, die by the sword with Smitty and net. And it'll be interesting to see. That's a big question mark for the Oilers. If he's back, then all of a sudden your tandem is Smith and Skinner. But if he's not, then who knows what they're going to do.
Yeah.
You know how I knew that Smith was hard to watch? Because I was also like, what are you doing? Get back in the net. Was when my wife started doing it. Right? She's like, what's he doing? Why is he go back in the net?
But everything,
sometimes
every little
he goes
shot,
for a wander out there.
every little shot, it's like a balancing act. And
I know.
Limbs are all over the place.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to...
If you're a fan of chaos, though, Mike Smith is your ambassador because there was nights when he was absolutely fantastic, and then there was nights when he'd make you rip your hair out. We'll see what happens in net because that's a big question for the Oilers.
Yeah, I don't think you can blame him completely for any of the losses.
I don't think so at all.
I think you can also say that we may not have gotten to where we got without him either, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, again, like you said, there was a real roller coaster ride with him. We're going to keep you on Wednesdays through the summer, if that's cool.
Yeah, of course. Plenty to talk about, even if there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Or we'll make up stuff.
Well, that's what we do for the next 4 months. So
there he is. Baggedmilk from Oilers Nation. Thank you for your time, my friend.
Thanks, boys.
The Locker Room.
Brought to you by Always Plumbing and Heating.
Weekday mornings on 95.7 Cruise FM.